my dear friends and net aspirants, welcome back to High Point once again. So today we are going to learn about audience or reception studies and how they are relevant in cultural studies. Okay, so like always we'll be having an introductory section, then we will discuss the concept further. So before that, if you have not yet subscribed to my channel here, High Point, then subscribe to it if you are interested in having the whole HS series of cultural studies and the whole HS series of literary theory and criticism. And of course, along with that, we have already started the elective series of English literature, English language and literature. So if you don't want to miss any of these things, and if you want to study systematically towards NTA UGC NET on your own, then of course you can subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon while you are subscribing, because I don't want you to miss out any of the updations that we are making in here. So along with YouTube, you can find me on Instagram. I have an Instagram page. My ID is right here. Why I want you to follow this? Because I am sharing, like in YouTube, I am sharing lot of free materials that you can, in a glimpse, you can understand many more things, like study cards, simplified study cards, amazing facts about literature I'm sharing there, and also short videos, reels, in a funny way, in a glimpse, you can learn many more things from such materials. So study cards, their daily quiz questions which are lively attemptable in my story in Instagram. Instagram provides lots of facilities. See, I'm going to use one after another, and soon I'll be going live in there, and also we'll be having small little bit videos about some concepts related to English language and literature, history of English language and literature. So you can actually save all these materials to your own account. That will be a real help. Whenever you need, you can come back to that things, and you can have all of them, and you can share those things who are interested as well. Now after that, I have also a WhatsApp group in which I am sharing daily quiz question and answers, as well as some study materials in every week, and also news and updates related to NTA UGC NET. If you want to be a part of this WhatsApp group, you can go to the description box and click the link and join, or if not, you can directly message me in this given number, and I will be sharing the link, and you can be a part of our WhatsApp family. And more than that, more than any of this, you can visit my website www.highpoint.in if you are looking for some simplified, comprehensible and systematically arranged, chronologically arranged study materials. Then of course you can visit my website, use the Chrome, or go to the description box, click the link and go to it, and you can see whatever we have provided there after having the free trial. And if you are studying on your own for your UGC NET JRF goals, then this will guide you about what you have to learn. So don't go for a random learning, at least study chronologically everything. So we have actually simplified and divided the entire NTA syllabus for you under 10 modules, and you will get an idea what you have to study. And after having the free materials, and you can see that we have provided 900 plus audios and 300 plus downloadable study materials in the form of PDFs, and also the entire set of practice and previous question papers which are lively attemptable, and you can know your marks and progress instantly, providing you an experience of attempting exam. So if you are interested in all these things and you want to be a part of our family as a student, then you can subscribe to either of the courses that we have offered there. And a 15% of off is going on in the free structure now, because I don't want you to wait for the next NTA exam schedule notification and lose your time in the meantime, and you don't get sufficient time for covering the entire material and revise them. So start studying early. So that's why we have provided the offer early too, and you can have the offer now, and you can join our family as a student. And once you join the course, you will get two benefits. Which are they? You will get two offers. First one, you will get a weekly test in every Saturdays, and that will really keep you inconsistent in your studies, and that will provide you more information about whatever you have learned, and this way you can brush up whatever you have already covered. And the second thing that we will provide, that the personal study guidelines. These are not merely we are prepared already for everyone else and we are just passing you that, but we will have first of all a questionnaire filled by you after joining the course. Then in the very next day we will provide you the personal guideline according to your own responses, according to the time you can find for studying in a daily basis, according to your own difficulty and easiness of topics. Okay, so this will be a personalized, customized study guideline for you. It's not that once we give that study guideline, that personal study guideline, we will be vanished. No, we will be checking in intervals after maybe in every week, that we will check upon you and we will ask, have you finished, are you following our suggestion, do you find any difficulty? It's not that we will be lost in touch. We will be always there for you to help, and you can come back to us if you want to have. And we are also actually planning many more things, like in between we will be providing you some webinars and motivational classes. So all these things we are planning. So if you are interested in any of these things, from the website directly you can join us, or if you want to know more and if you want to have more clarity of any of the things that I have said here, you can directly message me in this number. I'll be glad to provide further details. Now let's move on to the major topic of today's video, which is audience reception studies. Okay, so this is an introduction. Cultural studies explores the processes through which a culture produces meaning. So culture is about producing meaning. As we communicate, we actually exchange meaning of various things through representation. We are creating meaning. All those things we have already seen. If you have missed any of the videos, you can go to the I button, and I have provided the link to the entire playlist, because I am not going to discuss anything more about representation. What is representation? Anything more about media culture, anything more about cultural intermediaries. Okay, because we have already done in detail about these topics, so you can easily go there and you can watch them and you can understand and come back. Okay, it must be like that, one after another. Systematically you have to follow these videos, otherwise you won't find any connection. Because when I simply say the term, those who are listened and studied already, they'll get what I am trying to tell. Otherwise you won't get a connection. So don't lose the connection. Watch the entire video sessions one by one after another in that particular order itself, and come back to this video. Okay, that is the safest thing to do. And cultural study explores the processes through which a culture produces meaning. See, more or less every other video I have said this point. How a culture emerged through communication happened between individuals of a community. So individuals of community, they communicate each other, they exchange meaning, they actually provide many things through representations. They are providing meaning, they are creating meaning, and through communication they are maintaining, propagating and exchanging meaning. So cultural studies, mainly while they are exploring various culture, they are actually exploring how inside a culture meaning is produced, maintained and propagated, or how meanings get changed as time passes. And meanings are generated through communication and representation and negotiated through power relations. See, if you remember one of the examples that I shared in one of the videos, that I told you about how we are buying toys to our kids, because boy kids always provided with tool kits or guns or trucks, but girls children, they are always given with or gifted with Barbie dolls or dolls of any kind, or kitchen utensils, such kind of things are gifted to them. So a kind of representation is happening, representation of gender differences are happening, and meanings are produced in that context, in that discourse, that we are emphasizing these gender roles, as men should go out and do the hard labor, and they should be the breadwinner, and then they will have more kind of freedom to go out, while women, they need to be inside the house, and they should have nurture qualities, they should cook for the family and do all the house chores and all. So in that way, we are actually creating a situation, a representation, a discourse, and we are actually emphasizing certain meanings, and how these meanings got established. Okay, how these meanings are got established, because it is approved by power relations or power structures. Patriarchy is a power structure. Marriage is a power institution, or a kind of hegemonic institution under this under patriarchy. And gender differences that we are assuming that is there as natural, that is also comes under patriarchy. So these power relations and power institutions and hegemonic structures are approving certain things that are getting relevance. Okay, otherwise the other thing that we are doing is, if we are trying to give a girl child a toolkit and a boy child with a Barbie girl, then you will feel that something is unnatural there. It's not natural, right? So something is going not right. So that is not approved by the power structures and power relations inside a society. That's why we are getting a strange feeling when we see like that. So meanings are generated through communication and representation, and it is negotiated and get established because of the approval of power relations. Okay, communication is a two-way process, so it's not that a one-way process. We will send a message to someone, and there will be a feedback too. Okay, a reply to. A message is sent from an addresser to the addressee through a medium. So addresser will be there, addressee will be the one who is sending the message, the addresser will be there, and to whom the message is sent, that addressee is also there, and in between them there is a medium. Language as a medium can be served, or if mass media is there, TV is as a medium, telephone as a medium, or we can say many more things, media as medium. So it is important to study how these representations are received and consumed. So meanings are generated, and we are actually communicating or sending that message, but it is also important that how the addressee or the receiver is receiving that message and consuming them. So communication is a two-way process. It's not only important that you are sending some messages, and if communication is fruitful and if it is informative, if it is good enough to call it as a communication, then you have to analyze, you have to get an idea what happened with this message once that addressee received this message and consumed it. So that's how in communication audience and reception theories are important. Okay, now let's see more about audience or reception studies. Cultural studies analyze the ways in which audience receive the message, how they respond to it, and the effects the message generates. So cultural studies, since it is interested about communication, because through communication a community is formed, and community is all about creating meanings and generating it and propagating it and maintaining it through communication. So since it is related to all these things, meanings and representation, cultural studies also, they are studying how audience or addressees or receivers of a message, how they are receiving the message, how they are responding to it, message in the sense the meanings that we are generally exchanging. Okay, the messages, how they are receiving it and how they are responding, what is their feedback, and what are the effects and changes that the message made or generated in them. So cultural studies mainly analyze from the background of audience or reception studies. Cultural studies analyze this. Audience include readers, listeners, viewers, consumers who are consuming different kind of images and representations. See, when we are giving boy kids with toolkits and girl kids with Barbie doll. So they are the receivers, right? So readers, listeners, viewers, consumers, so the kids in this context, kids are the receivers, and we are actually not directly communicating anything with them, but they are actually consuming an idea from the childhood itself, from their very children. They don't have any other idea about gender differences or anything else, they don't know, but from that little infant stage, from that stage itself, we are giving them an idea about, or we are actually indirectly communicating the thing called gender difference in the context of what? In the discourse of patriarchy. Gender difference or gender roles or patriarchy is the discourse in there, and we can see the text that we are practicing there is the toys, and what we want to convey there: gender roles, patriarchy, and gender differences and duties. So we can analyze that context in audience reception studies, that how they are consuming these images and representations in this discourse in different ways. Reception is the use of mediated cultural text by the audience and the reaction to internalized representations. See here, cultural text, you have to understand more. What is a text? Basically a text is what we call as a text is that we will have printed pages. It's a book, right? It's a work, it's a book, but inside a book you will find language, right? Inside a language, what we have, what is language? See, remember the definition given to language by Saussure. Language is system of signs, right? System of signs, and say a sign has signifier and signified. What is signified? Signified is the image or a sound. Okay, signifier is an image or a sound, and signifier is the meaning that we have in our mind while we see that image, while we hear that sound. Okay, so combining these two things, signifier and signified, combining these two things, we have a sign. So a sign is a combination of signifier and signified. Okay, so what we have in culture, we have various kinds of images, various kinds of meanings, various kinds of symbols, right? This toy is a symbol, it is a text as well, because we are creating a context, a discourse by giving them to our kids in two different ways. Okay, two or more different kinds of ways. So, you know, that's how cultural text is referred to this entire image system, or you know, code and symbols that we have there. Culture, just like language, it contains lot of signs. That's why culture is also like language. Okay, so reception is the use of mediated cultural text by the audience and the reaction to internalized representation. See, reception is like, you know, certain things are given to you through cultural text. Cultural texts are mediated here, and how this audience are receiving them, and what are their reactions while they are internalizing that representations. Reception is not a passive process. It's not that the sender will or the addresser will send something to you or exchange some meanings to you, and you will, as a receiver, you will passively adapt to that representations, that meanings, or you will simply receive and internalize that representation. It's not a passive process, but modify images to suit our requirements and cultural political beliefs. So we will, after once receiving this particular representations and whatever messages and meanings are conveyed, we will make them modify into an image that suits you and suits your requirements and also our cultural political beliefs. Our interpretation, which is the pivot of reception, is based on our cultural context. Okay, so we will interpret that message. What does that mean? Okay, which is the pivot in the sense it's a central point of reception. So whatever, how you are understanding certain messages. So take the example, simple example of a telephone call. Somebody, your friend, some of your friends called you and told you something, and how you are understanding it, because you are interpreting that message. You interpret in a way that maybe this message by this person means this, and we are interpreting. Actually, understanding means interpreting. So that is the pivot point of our reception. So when we receive something and we understand something, that means that we are interpreting that message, and how these interpretations will happen according to our cultural context or background. Okay, our interpretation is the central point of our reception, our understanding of anything, and this understanding of reception of any message is based on our own cultural context. See, when you hear the word Mahatma Gandhi, take the example of the word Mahatma Gandhi. I'm not talking about the name. See, you hear the meaning, you hear the word Mahatma Gandhi or Gandhi, simply Gandhi. Nobody needs to come to you and tell you that Mahatma Gandhi is so and so person in India, and he is so relevant in here, and these things are, see, Satyagraha. Satyagraha is a word related to him. You know this. How come you know this? Because of your cultural context. You are culturally familiar to this word Mahatma Gandhi or the name Mahatma Gandhi. Okay? Nobody needs to come to you and tell you that, Mahatma Gandhi is our nation's father of our nation, and he is a great freedom fighter, and he propagated the idea of Satyagraha and truthfulness and many more things, and his image is like that. Even though when you see the image of Mahatma Gandhi, nobody needs to come to you and tell you that this is Mahatma Gandhi. Being an Indian, being a familiar figure, and being you are familiar with this cultural context in which Mahatma Gandhi is relevant, you can easily understand him as Mahatma Gandhi. But this may not be the case with you when you hear a foreign freedom fighter's name in another land, in another context, in another cultural context. So your interpretation about, see, Mahatma Gandhi's picture is a symbol, it's a sign. It communicates many more things. That picture is a signifier, and there are many meanings associated to that picture that are signified there. And because simply you are familiar, you are an Indian and you are familiar with this Indian cultural context, you can have interpretation of that messages, and that's how your perception about that message goes. So our interpretation is the main point of or the pivotal point of our reception, and this interpretation is based on cultural context. So reception will happen according to our interpretation, and that interpretation is based on our cultural context. So I hope that was clear. We function from within an interpretative community. So how our perception is functioning as we interpret. So we function, we do all this meaning production, receiving and perception and all as a part of interpretative community, a term coined by Stanley Fish. So remember this, interpretative community is a term coined by Stanley Fish, where exist certain conventions of reading and shared cultural code. See, take again the example of Mahatma Gandhi's picture. There is an image of Mahatma Gandhi wearing dress in a certain way. So you immediately after seeing this, you can understand this is this person. This image is of Mahatma Gandhi. You can understand that, and many more quotes will come into your mind. Signification will happen after seeing this message, since you are familiar with this cultural context. So how this interpretative community is there, and we are having this interpretation because of certain conventions of reading are there, shared cultural codes are there. See, shared cultural codes means that we have commonly shared cultural codes, commonly shared signs, and commonly shared symbols are there. So there is a certain way in which we have to read in the sense we have to perceive and understand, interpret certain things. See, usually we have this idea that one who is dressed as a traditional person, traditional woman, so traditional Indian women, they are so good. See, we usually have this perception that who is dressed in a western style like jeans or top or jeans or short banian and or t-shirt. If a girl is dressed like that, suppose one side there is a girl dressed like that, on the other hand we have another girl who is in salwar or who is in sari, both of them are same age, then we will naturally, most of us, I won't say everybody, but some of us, we have a immediate perception, immediate convention will work in our mind that this girl who is wearing a salwar or a sari, she is good, while this person who is wearing a western kind of dress, she is rude, she must be very rude, she is outspoken, she is she is not an integral part of culture, she is actually in contradiction with many of the cultural codes that we have here. So usually we have that kind of conventional reading going on, especially not in our generation, but take the example of our parents. Okay, they'll have this immediate perception and conventional reading about people. If somebody is talking, then talking about some rights, who is having a high volume sound, then that person is an awkward kind of person, who is not a traditional kind of person, who is not one who is confined to the Indian culture things, but who is wearing a salwar and who is acting herself or himself as a very naive. Most of the case this will go with the girls only, okay, who is acting like naive and innocent, she is very good, she is cultural and she is a great, she is an Indian woman culturally. So in that way we have a certain conventions of reading and understanding and perceiving and interpreting things, and also we have a shared cultural codes. So this Mahatma Gandhi's picture is a shared cultural code, and the things related to Satyagraha and all, that is a cultural shared code that we all know that it is associated to Mahatma Gandhi. So in that way we are interpretative community, we function from, we are acting and we are creating and generating this kind of significations, or we are coming up with these meanings as a part of interpretative community. And in this interpretative community we have certain conventional reading and shared cultural code. Those who go beyond and against these conventions, they are regarded as something, something strange. Okay, so this is a term, interpretative community is a term coined by Stanley Fish, remember that. We interpret certain codes because we already know them, and like this we express our cultural identity and making us distinguished from other cultural identities. See, there are hundreds of flags are there. Suppose, imagine hundreds of flags of the countries are there. From that hundreds of flags you can identify Indian flag, right? Most of us can. I won't say 100% they can, but most of us, 99% of Indians, they can identify their flag from that hundreds of flags. How? Because we are aware of this certain code and it's so popular in our culture, and by identifying that cultural code of national flag, we are expressing our cultural identity and making us distinguished from other cultural identities. Okay, our certain cultural codes such as dress, eating habits, lifestyle, etc. identifies us as member of particular cultural group. So how we are identifying with these cultural codes? Our dressing style, eating habits, lifestyle, all these things, when certain situation arises, how we are interpreting the shared codes, how we are familiar with our cultural identity, familiar with all these cultural codes, and through identifying and interpreting them, we are actually revealing and expressing our cultural identity that makes us distinguished from other cultural identities, and that make us also identify ourselves with as a member of a particular cultural group. The audience creates its identities through the consumption and reception of cultural artifacts. So how, as audience, as consumers, as receivers of messages, receivers of all these cultural codes and all, when we decode them, when we identify these messages, these meanings, these codes, these readings, or interpret them, whatever meanings are there, these cultural codes and signs, when we consume them in that way, we are creating our own identity through this consumption and reception of cultural artifacts. So that's how, because it creates this consumption of codes, cultural codes, and our conventional reading of certain things creates our identities. And it also important how these things are received by the addressee, and also how they are creating their identities within a community, within this interpretative community, is relevant in cultural studies. That's how audience or reception studies and cultural studies are relevant in cultural studies. Okay, I hope that idea about audience or reception studies are important. No need to go in deep into it, but remember whatever I have discussed in here. Okay, so that's all about this video, and I hope this will be a real help for you to understand audience reception studies. And next video onwards, we will be discussing about how theories and cultural studies are interconnected, like theories of 20th century like structuralism, post-structuralism, deconstruction, Marxism. All these things are related to cultural studies, how they are relevant and how they are interpreting and coming up various concepts in cultural studies. Okay, so don't forget to visit my website www.highpoint.in if you are interested in having a systematic studies towards your UGC NET JRF goals with us, along with the offers that we are providing like weekly tests and personalized study guidelines. And also, if you want to be a part of our WhatsApp group, don't hesitate to go to the description box and click the link and join, or you can directly message me in here. I can help you with that. And freely I'm sharing lot of study materials on my Instagram page, and don't forget to have them all and enjoy your learning and use as many as study materials and sources in order to fulfill your UGC NET JRF dreams. I hope very best for you. And also don't forget to follow me and on Instagram, because I don't want you to miss the whole entire free materials that I am sharing there in a daily basis in my page, Instagram page, and you can have all of them, save them and use them, or you can share them with your friends, those who are not in Instagram as well. I don't have any restriction of all those things. So yeah, that's all about it. And if you have any other further doubt regarding the subject that we have discussed, or any other things that we have discussed in my YouTube channel, or any other thing related to NTU UGC NET JRF English language and literature, if you want any kind of helps in this regard, you can freely call me or message me or WhatsApp me in this number. I'll be glad to provide help with that. Also, I'll be glad to share my experience and I can guide you some extent, I hope. So that's all about it. Meet you in the next video session. Until then, bye bye and happy learning.